The vast blue planet rotated slowly in the void, its surface covered 95% by endless oceans. Planet Azure, as the Galactic records called it, had been discovered 300 years ago by the Galactic Council. Every species that visited took one look at the water-covered world and marked it as uninhabitable. Captain James stood on the bridge of the human colony ship Pioneer, staring at the planet through the viewscreen. Behind him, his crew of 5,000 colonists waited for his decision. The Galactic Council representative, a tall silicon-based being named Crix, floated beside him in its environmental suit. "Your species confuses us, Captain," Crix said through its translator. 17 civilizations have rejected this world. Too much water, too few land masses, constant storms. Why do humans want what others abandon? James smiled. Because we see opportunity where others see obstacles. Earth was 70% water, and we thrived there. This is just a bit more challenging. The alien's crystalline form flickered with what James had learned was disbelief. The storms here reach speeds of 400 kilometers per hour. The waves can tower 50 meters high. There are sea creatures larger than your spacecraft. Sounds like home during hurricane season, James replied. We've dealt with worse. 3 months earlier, humanity had finally been accepted into the Galactic Council. The other species had been shocked when humans immediately requested colonization rights to all the abandoned water worlds. Dozens of planets that had been ignored for millennia suddenly became human territory. As the Pioneer descended through Azure's atmosphere, the crew prepared their specialized equipment. Unlike other species who needed solid ground for their cities, humans had brought floating platforms, underwater habitats, and storm-resistant structures designed specifically for ocean worlds. Dr. Lisa, the mission's lead scientist, reported from her station. Atmosphere is perfect for human life. Ocean composition shows high nutrient content. We're detecting massive schools of fish-like creatures. Captain, this planet could feed billions. The landing was rough. Hurricane-force winds battered the ship as it deployed the first floating platform on a relatively calm section of ocean. Within hours, the human colonists were at work, assembling structures that other species had declared impossible to build. Tom, the head engineer, supervised the deployment of wave energy collectors. These storms that everyone fears, they're going to power our entire civilization. Each hurricane contains enough energy to run a city for a year. The floating city began to take shape. Flexible structures that bent with the waves rather than fighting them. Underwater farms that use the ocean currents to spread nutrients. Desalination plants that turned the endless salt water into fresh drinking water. By the end of the first week, Crix requested permission to observe the colony. Its species had never understood water, coming from a desert world where liquid was poison to their silicon bodies. It watched in amazement as humans dove into the violent seas, swimming alongside predators that would terrify most species. You don't conquer the ocean, James explained to the alien. You learn to live with it. Humans spent thousands of years learning this lesson on Earth. We built ships, submarines, oil rigs, and floating cities. Water isn't our enemy, it's our oldest friend. A massive storm approached on the 10th day. The Galactic Council sent urgent messages, offering evacuation. They were certain the human colony would be destroyed. Instead, the colonists activated their storm protocols. Buildings sealed and submerged slightly below the surface. Energy collectors deployed to harvest the storm's power. Everyone moved to secure areas and waited. The storm passed, and the colony emerged intact. More than intact, their energy reserves were now full for the next 5 years. The storm had also driven massive schools of fish into their farming nets, providing food for months. Impossible, Crix transmitted to the council. They used the storm to their advantage. Within a month, The colony was not just surviving, but thriving. The floating city expanded daily. Underwater mining operations extracted minerals that had been untouched for millions of years. The colonists even began surfing the massive waves for recreation, turning what others saw as deadly into entertainment. The message spread throughout the galaxy. Humans had done the impossible. They had taken a world deemed uninhabitable by 17 advanced civilizations and turned it into a paradise. 6 months had passed since the establishment of New Atlantis, humanity's first water-world colony. The floating city now sprawled across 20 square kilometers of ocean, with submarine suburbs extending deep beneath the waves. What the Galactic Council hadn't expected was how quickly humans would adapt and innovate. Commander Mike descended in the deep-sea exploration vessel, going where no alien species had dared to venture. At 3,000 meters below the surface, the pressure would crush most spacecraft. But humans had been building submarines for centuries, and this was just another day at work. Commander, we're picking up structures on sonar, reported Aina, his pilot. They look artificial. Through the darkness, illuminated by their lights, ancient ruins emerged. Massive stone pyramids and temples, clearly built by an intelligent species, lay perfectly preserved in the deep ocean. The discovery sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. Ambassador Zet of the Cosmic Federation arrived within days, his species being aquatic, but only capable of surviving in shallow waters. "This is impossible," he declared through his breathing apparatus. "We scanned this planet thoroughly. There was no sign of civilization." Mike grinned. "You scanned from orbit and checked the land masses. You never looked under the water. Humans have a saying, the ocean keeps its secrets well." The ruins revealed that Azure had once hosted an advanced civilization that had chosen to live beneath the waves. Their technology, preserved by the cold depths, was beyond anything in the current galaxy. Pressure-resistant materials that made diamond look fragile. Energy sources that pulled power directly from water molecules. Architecture that used ocean currents for climate control. Dr. Lisa studied the artifacts with growing excitement. They didn't fight the ocean. They became part of it. Look at these designs. Their cities were living organisms, growing and adapting with the environment. The human colonists immediately began incorporating the ancient technology into their own designs. Within weeks, New Atlantis started to transform. Buildings that grew like coral, healing themselves when damaged. Submarines that moved like fish, using minimal energy to travel vast distances. Water purification systems that worked at the molecular level. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. The Vorthan representative, a gaseous being in a containment suit, expressed the collective concern. Humans are advancing too quickly. This technology was hidden for a reason. Perhaps the ancient race destroyed themselves with it. James, now promoted to governor, addressed the council via hologram. Every species in this galaxy avoided water worlds because they feared them. But fear blinds you to opportunity. These ancients didn't destroy themselves, they transcended. We found evidence they left for the stars, evolved beyond physical form. They left their technology as a gift for whoever was brave enough to claim it. The deep-sea mining operations uncovered more than ruins. Vast deposits of rare elements, impossible to find on land-based worlds, lay scattered across the ocean floor. Elements that could revolutionize space travel, medicine, and energy production. Trade requests flooded in from across the galaxy. Species that had mocked humanity's choice now begged for access to Azure's resources. The humans agreed, but on their terms. Any species wanting to trade had to acknowledge water worlds as habitable and valuable. Young colonist David had been born on the colony, the first human native to a water world. He could hold his breath for 15 minutes, swim faster than Earth Olympians, and his eyes had adapted to see clearly underwater. The children born on Azure were evolving, becoming something new. We're not just colonizing, Dr. Lisa noted in her research log. We're adapting at a genetic level. In a few generations, we'll have humans perfectly suited for aquatic life. A massive creature, 100 meters long, approached the city one day. The defense systems activated, but James ordered them to stand down. The creature circled the city once, seemed to study it, then departed peacefully. It returned the next day with others of its kind. Marine biologist Robert analyzed their behavior. They're intelligent. They're trying to communicate. Using the ancient technology, the colonists created a translation system. The creatures, calling themselves the Deep Singers, had watched the ruins for millennia, waiting for someone worthy to claim them. They judged humanity worthy because humans swam with them rather than hiding in shells of metal. Asterisk. The alliance with the Deep Singers changed everything. They showed humans hidden currents that could transport ships across the planet in hours. They warned of storms days in advance. They even helped with construction. Their massive forms moving materials. No human machine could lift out. The Galactic Council watched in amazement as humanity's waterworld colonies multiplied. What had been seen as worthless planets became the most valuable real estate in the galaxy. Asterisk Year 2 on Azure brought the season the deep. Singers called the Great Tempest. For 3 months, the entire planet would be wrapped in a continuous storm system, with winds exceeding 500 kilometers per hour and waves reaching heights of 100 meters. Every previous species that had surveyed Azure had marked this as the reason for absolute uninhabitability. Governor James stood in the command center, watching the storm approach on the satellites. The Galactic Council had sent 15 urgent messages demanding immediate evacuation. 3 rescue fleets waited at the edge of the system, ready to extract the doomed human colonists. Sir, the Galactic Council chairman is on the line, announced Communications Officer Sam. Chairman Vior. A methane-breathing creature from a gas giant appeared on the screen. Governor James, you must evacuate immediately. No technology can withstand the Great Tempest. We have geological records showing it has scoured the planet's surface clean 17 times in recorded history. James smiled calmly. Chairman, with respect, those geological records show the land masses being scoured. We're not on land. We're part of the ocean itself. The colonists had spent months preparing. Every structure had been retrofitted with the ancient technology they'd discovered. Buildings that could shift between solid and liquid states, flowing with the storm rather than resisting it. Energy collectors that could harness lightning strikes, powerful enough to vaporize metal. Deep anchoring systems that connected to the planet's crust itself. Engineer, Tom had designed something special. Storm riders. Ships specifically built to surf the massive waves, using the storm's own power to stay stable. If you can't beat nature, join it, he explained to his terrified alien observers. When the Great Tempest hit, New Atlantis transformed. The city dove beneath the surface, but not to hide. Instead, it became a submarine metropolis, using the calm waters below the storm to continue functioning normally. Transport submarines moved freely while the surface raged above. Captain Maria led the first Storm Rider expedition. Her crew of 12 volunteers launched just as the storm reached its peak. The Galactic Council watched in horror through satellite feeds as the small ship climbed a 90-meter wave. They're insane, Crix transmitted. They'll be destroyed. But the Storm Rider crested the wave and rode down its face, its specially designed hull cutting through the water like a blade. The ship's energy collectors absorbed power from the wind and lightning, actually gaining speed and strength from the storm. This is incredible. Maria broadcast. We're traveling at 300 kilometers per hour with zero fuel consumption. The storm is pushing us exactly where we want to go. The Storm Riders discovered something amazing. The great tempest wasn't chaotic. It followed patterns, ancient currents that the deep singers had tried to explain. By riding these patterns, ships could circumnavigate the planet in days rather than months. Below the surface, life continued normally. Children went to school in submarine classrooms. Farmers tended to kelp forests that swayed with the deep currents. Miners extracted minerals from the ocean floor. Undisturbed by the chaos above, Dr. Lisa made a breakthrough studying the ancient ruins during the storm. The previous civilization didn't just survive these storms, they celebrated them. Look at these carvings. The great tempest was their new year, a time of renewal and energy. The storms brought nutrients from the deep ocean to the surface. Fish populations exploded. The kelp forests grew at 10 times their normal rate. The colony's food production increased by 1,000%. On day 30 of the great tempest, something unexpected happened. A distress signal came from the edge of the system. A Vorthan science vessel had been caught in the storm's gravitational effects and pulled into the atmosphere. Without hesitation, Captain Maria launched her storm rider. The rescue seemed impossible, finding a small ship in a planet-wide hurricane. But the humans had learned to read the storm, to understand its language. Using the patterns they'd mapped, Maria's crew located the Vorthan vessel being torn apart in the upper atmosphere. They matched its tumbling trajectory, extended magnetic grapples, and pulled it into their wake. Surfing down a massive wave, they delivered the aliens safely to New Atlantis. The rescue changed everything. The Galactic Council couldn't deny what they'd witnessed. Humans hadn't just survived the unsurvivable, they'd performed a rescue during it. The Vorthan survivor, scientist Gao, stayed to study human methods. "Your species doesn't think like others," he observed. "Where we see walls, you see doors. Where we see endings, you see beginnings." As the great tempest entered its final month, other water worlds across the galaxy reported human colonies requesting to be established. The waiting list grew to over 100 worlds. The great tempest had ended, leaving Azure transformed. The ocean glowed with bioluminescent plankton stirred up from the depths, creating a light show visible from space. New islands had formed from underwater volcanoes, activated by the storm's pressure changes. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. Mining supervisor Jack was the first to spot them crystalline formations growing on the ocean floor where the storm's electromagnetic fields had been strongest. The crystals pulsed with their own energy, somehow storing and amplifying the storm's power. "Governor, you need to see this," Jack called from his deep-sea station. "These aren't just crystals. They're some kind of natural battery, but more advanced than anything we've ever seen." Dr. Lisa's analysis confirmed the impossible. The crystals could store virtually unlimited energy and release it in any form: electricity, heat, light, even kinetic force. One crystal the size of a human fist could power New Atlantis for a year. The discovery attracted immediate attention from across the galaxy. The Merchant Guild, the galaxy's most powerful trading organization, sent their chief negotiator, a spider-like being named Webb. "Name your price," Webb said simply. "The galaxy needs this energy source." James shook his head. "They're not for sale. But we're willing to trade for colonization rights to more water worlds and full recognition of aquatic planets as prime real estate." The negotiations were interrupted by an emergency. The deep singers had detected something massive approaching from the deep ocean trenches. Something they feared. Doc Robert, the marine biologist, translated their sonic warnings. "They call it the Ancient One. It's been sleeping in the deepest trench for thousands of years." A great tempest woke it up. The creature that emerged defied understanding. 2 kilometers long, it looked like a fusion of organic and mechanical parts. Tentacles that sparked with electricity, eyes that projected scanning lasers, a body that seemed to phase in and out of visibility. The colony's defenses were useless. Energy weapons were absorbed. Physical projectiles passed through it. The creature approached New Atlantis, and panic began to spread. Then 10-year-old Emma, one of the children born on Azure, did something unexpected. She dove into the water and swam toward the creature. Before anyone could stop her, she was floating directly in front of the Ancient One. "Emma, get back!" Her mother screamed over the communicator dot, but Emma raised her hand, and the creature stopped. She later explained that she could hear it not with her ears, but with her mind. The mutations in Azure-born children weren't random. They were becoming something new, capable of true communication with the ocean's life. Through Emma, the Ancient One spoke. It was the last guardian of the previous civilization, left behind to test whoever came next. Humanity had passed, not through force or technology alone, but through harmony with the ocean. The Ancient One offered a gift knowledge of how to truly become one with water worlds, not just surviving on them, but transforming them into paradise planets that could support 1,000,000,000,000 beings each. The transformation of New Atlantis began immediately. Following the Ancient One's guidance, the colonists created living buildings that filtered water, produced oxygen, and grew food simultaneously. They developed symbiotic relationships with ocean creatures, who helped with construction in exchange for protected breeding grounds that the children born on Azure were the key. They could communicate with all marine life, sense changes in ocean currents days in advance, and even influence the weather patterns through their connection to the planet's electromagnetic field. Ambassador Zet returned to observe the changes. His report to the Galactic Council was brief but impactful. Humans haven't just colonized a water world. They've evolved into something new, a truly aquatic species that makes my own people look like land dwellers. Trade agreements flooded in. The energy crystals, which the colonists learned to cultivate like crops, became the galaxy's most valuable resource. But humans maintained control, trading only with species that respected water worlds. A year after the Ancient One's awakening, Azure had 50 floating cities, 200 submarine communities, and a population of 3 million. The planet that 17 species had declared worthless was now the richest. World in the sector. Other water worlds with human colonies reported similar discoveries. Each planet had its own version of the Ancient Ones, its own gifts waiting to be claimed by those brave enough to embrace the ocean. The Galactic Council officially revised their habitability classifications. Water worlds were upgraded from Class D, marginal, to Class S, superior, but with a note: only inhabitable by humans and species willing to adapt. Governor James stood on the observation deck, watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and purple. Crix floated beside him, its crystalline form reflecting the colors. "Your species has changed the galaxy's understanding of what's possible," Crix said. 5 years had passed since humanity's first landing on Azure. The transformation was complete, not just of the planet, but of humanity itself. The Galactic Council had called an emergency assembly, not to address a crisis, but to formally recognize a new reality. Governor James stood before the assembled representatives of 200 species. Beside him stood Emma, now 15, and the first official human-ocean hybrid ambassador. Her skin had a subtle scaled pattern that caught light like pearls. Her eyes could see perfectly in the deepest darkness, and gills fluttered quietly alongside her neck while she maintained air breathing for the assembly. 5 years ago, James began, you gave us worlds you considered worthless. Today, humanity controls 40% of the galaxy's energy production, 60% of rare mineral extraction, and produces enough food to feed 300 billion beings. The numbers were undeniable. Human water worlds had become the economic powerhouse of the galaxy. The energy crystals they cultivated could power entire fleets. The deep-sea minerals enabled new technologies. The ocean farms produced protein yields It made traditional agriculture obsolete. Chairman, VO's gaseous form swirled with what James had learned was embarrassment. The Galactic Council formally acknowledges its error. Water worlds are not marginal territories. They are perhaps the most valuable planets in our galaxy. But the real change went deeper. Admiral Chun, commanding humanity's first Waterworld-built spacecraft, demonstrated their new technology. Ships that used water as fuel, splitting hydrogen and oxygen for propulsion. Hulls that could shift between solid and liquid states, making them nearly indestructible. Navigation systems based on the Deep Singer's sonic patterns that could detect objects across entire solar systems. "We're not keeping this to ourselves," James announced. "Humanity offers to share our water-world technology with any species willing to join us in the oceans." The first to accept were the Aquari, a jellyfish-like species who had always been confined to shallow seas on their homeworld. Using human technology and guidance, they established their first deep ocean city within months. Emma addressed the assembly in both human speech and the harmonic tones she'd learned from the Deep Singers. The ocean doesn't choose species based on their origin. It chooses based on their willingness to listen, to adapt, to become part of something greater. The transformation of humanity wasn't just physical. Artists created sculptures from living coral that grew and changed over time. Musicians learned to compose in the sonic frequencies of whales and deep singers, creating interspecies symphonies. Scientists discovered that water itself could store and transmit information, creating computers more powerful than anything silicon-based. Dr. Lisa, now head of the Galactic Aquatic Research Institute, presented her findings. Every water world we've colonized has ancient ones or similar guardians. They're connected, part of a network spanning the entire galaxy. The previous aquatic civilizations didn't disappear. They evolved into pure consciousness, existing in the quantum foam of water itself. This revelation shook the Galactic Council. Water wasn't just a resource, it was potentially the key to who. Transcendent evolution. The economic tables had completely turned. Species that had hoarded land-based worlds now petitioned humanity for water-world colonies. The waiting list stretched for decades. Humanity had gone from the newest member of the galactic community to its most influential force. But with power came responsibility. Pirates and raiders began targeting human colonies, trying to steal energy crystals and ancient technology. The response was swift and decisive. The ocean itself rose to defend the colonies. Waves guided by human consciousness, storms summoned at will, creatures of the deep responding to protect their human partners. The Battle of Cerulean, where 50 pirate ships were swallowed by a coordinated whirlpool without a single human casualty, sent a clear message. Water worlds were not vulnerable targets. Young Marcus, born on Azure's first anniversary, could now stay underwater indefinitely. He didn't breathe water, he processed it directly at the cellular level. He and others like him were classified as Homo aquatus, the next step in human evolution. "We're not replacing baseline humanity," Marcus explained to a documentary crew. "We're expanding what it means to be human." Land, sea, space humans adapt and thrive everywhere. The final vote at the Galactic Council was unanimous. Humanity was granted permanent sovereignty over all water worlds, with the understanding that they would share their knowledge and resources fairly. As the assembly concluded, Emma dove into the ceremonial pool at the center of the council chambers, gesture that would have been seen as primitive 5 years ago. But now it was recognized as a connection to the force that drove the galaxy's new age. The age of water had begun, and humanity was its herald. From feared and avoided worlds came prosperity, evolution, and hope for every species willing to embrace the tide. Asterisk.